Say it now. Say the obvious prediction right now.
The Stars are going to win the Stanley Cup.
Hey guys, and welcome back into the Starcastic Remarks Studios alongside Chris and James. My name is Ryan. We are the official Dallas Stars podcast at THPN. Go and use that promo code THPN the next time you go and use DraftKings Sportsbook. We thank them for being our sponsor of this episode and, as always, of this podcast and all of THPN. Guys, I'm back. Sorry I was away for a little while. I had a good excuse, though. We'll get into that here in a little bit. But before we get into anything else today, how are you guys doing? How's life treating you?
Great. The Stars are first in the Central, even after the Jets still won a game. So my mood is elevated. It's smart to tie your emotions to hockey.
We can tell, Chris. We can tell, Chris. You're very excited, aren't you?
Yes.
Chris is tired, and so am I to an extent as well, but for different reasons. Got a little bit of a headache going on. For you. But you know what? I took some Tylenol, and we'll be good. We'll make it through.
Yeah, and my body clock is all sorts of off because with the 2-hour difference in time between the Pacific and then losing an hour going forward and everything, my body feels like it's like 7 o'clock right now, even though at the time we're recording this, it's 10 o'clock Central Time Zone. So I feel okay. I'm still tired as well, but we got a lot to talk about here tonight, guys. We got some trade deadline stuff to discuss. I figured we jump into the Kings game first off, and then I'll talk a little bit about my trip, and if you guys have any questions as well, we'll get into that as well. So anyways, let's just start off right with the Kings game and start off with the fact that it's the second night of a back-to-back, and the Stars looked pretty good. And, you know, I'll eat my words when I say this, but I had my friend Travis there with me at crypto.com arena. And when they scored the first goal 30 seconds in, I was just like, oh no, this is going to be tragic. And then they started playing better, a little bit better. And I still didn't feel super confident about it. And I said, if they don't score in the first period, they're not going to have a chance to win the game. And boy, was I wrong. And I was very glad I was wrong. So let me get y'all's initial thoughts on that game against the Kings. What did y'all think?
Yeah, it shouldn't have been as unexpected if we paid a little bit closer attention. The Kings are terrible on home ice, actually, which I did not realize until looking at some of the stats after the fact, but they are absolute garbage. And yeah, that was really the first goal that they gave up in the first minute was really the only mistake that the Stars made defensively too. I mean, Wedgie played a good game, but he wasn't super overtaxed. I don't believe so. I thought the Stars played a good, solid game against a Kings team that didn't look that great.
I think that's true for the most part, other than Wedgie not really being taxed. I mean, there were some really big moments for him, especially in the second period when we finally did make it 2-1. The Kings did have a small little pushback, and I don't remember the play exactly, but there was a really big play with a really good chance from the Kings, and Wedgwood stole it for us. And that really was kind of that was more of a turning point than just the 18 seconds for me, which that's the obvious one.
So maybe some timely saves from Wedgie. Yeah,
definitely timely saves.
What did you think about the decision to go with Ottinger against the Ducks and Wedgwood against the Kings? Because just logically, you would think the opposite, right? Well, obviously, it worked out. It was good for the Stars. DeBoer kind of played his hand. But what did you think about that decision?
I really think this can come down to some of a comfortability thing, because we saw them do the opposite in our last back-to-back and had Wedgie play first and Otter play second, and Otter just bombed that second game. I mean, he did not look good, and you really need your goaltender to look good on the second night, and Wedgwood has been doing that well all season long, and I really think that was more of the thought process going into tonight. It was just or going into the Kings game. Wedgwood's always the person who gets the second night, and it worked perfectly.
I agree with James. Our record on back-to-backs has actually been pretty good so far this season. A lot of that can be credited to Wedgie. Some of his best games are when the Stars are on a second night of back-to-back. That's really where he shows up really big. And like James said, he had some timely saves against the Kings, and that really kind of shut it. The Kings were already getting stifled, but that really choked it all out of them. There was nothing left after he stopped that push, like James said.
And maybe this just, and by the way, my internet's going to go in and out. I apologize. It's not great internet, but something I noticed over the course of the last 2 years with this tandem of both Wedgwood and Ottinger is that Wedgwood seems to do really, really well against the big teams, and he makes 40 plus saves, it seems like. So, and again, maybe that's just, he kind of steps up in those moments and stuff like that. But that's kind of what I thought going into that back-to-back was maybe that's what they're thinking. It's just Wedgwood just seems to play better against the bigger teams, which is not necessarily a good thing, especially when it comes to playoff time. But it worked for them. They got the 2 points in the Ducks game, and they got the 2 points in the Kings game. This kind of goes to both games a little bit, guys. But what was really interesting that I noticed is after that San Jose game where the defense was flat out terrible, and in some cases it was to be expected because Chris Tanev didn't even get to do morning skate. He took warm-ups, and that was his introduction to the Stars franchise. It was bad. It was the exact opposite in the game against the Ducks and the game against the Kings. The defense was on point for both games. And it was even more interesting in the fact that they went 11-7 in the first game. So 11 forwards, 7 defensemen. And in the second game, they took out Nils and threw Craig Smith back in there, or whoever the forward healthy scratch was. I think it was Craig Smith. Yep. But what I loved about that is in the first game, you got to see all the different experimentation from Elaine Nazardine taking control of that decor, and that was really cool to see. It was a lot of fun to see, especially from a Stars fan being there and seeing that Lundqvist and Heiskanen are on the ice. What's going on there? And but what was even the thing that kind of stood out to me even more so than just the experimentation was the time on ice. In the first game, the game against the Kings, not a single defenseman played over 20 minutes, which was extremely, extremely key. It was such a great idea by Pete DeBoer and Elaine Nazardine, whoever deserves credit for that. And then even in the game against the Kings, guys, when you look at the time on ice, Miro Heiskanen only had 22 minutes and 2 seconds time on ice, which that's still a lot for a defenseman. But that is very under what he has played in the last couple of years. He's used to playing, 24, 25, 26 minutes a night. And the number of shifts that he had was significantly lower than what he's had throughout the season. So, and now you can view that as a good thing. You can view that as a bad thing. Some people view it as a bad thing as, oh, well, your best defenseman's not on the ice for more of the time. And then some people are looking at this as a good thing and saying, well, our best player can even be more effective in the shifts that he's given. So what's your thoughts on all of that? Because I know that's a lot to unpack, but it's just something that I noticed coming out of both of those games.
Yeah, 11-7 is definitely not ideal, but they made the best of a bad situation. And like you said, Ryan, they were able to try the different pairs and see what might work with Tanev. Unfortunately, I don't think many of those trials really stuck. So we're kind of back where we started with the Lindell-Tanev pair, which is fine. I mean, that's going to be a great shutdown pair. You're not really going to have anything to worry about on that pair ever. So nothing wrong there. But yeah, definitely not the ideal. And I forgot, what was the second part?
Time on ice.
Time on ice, yeah. I think that's more due to just the circumstances of the game. I mean, the games were over by the third period for both Anaheim and the Kings game, so there's not really much of a reason to force Heiskanen out there as much. I think if those games are close, Heiskanen's going to have the same high up their numbers because you want him on the ice when the game's on the line.
I'll agree with you on the Ducks game. I'll agree with you there. Not so much the Kings game, because the Kings did have their opportunities. They did. And it was closer than you think. I know it was like a 2-goal
game. I just feel like the Kings never really had a shot, though, honestly. I thought the Stars played them really well. They had one push, like James said, after we went up 2-1. And after that, even throughout the third period, even when they went 6-on-5, it didn't feel like there was much of a push.
Yeah, and we still ended up out shooting them in that third period, only by one shot. But I mean, it was pretty much, yeah, pretty much stifling defense for the Stars.
Okay, so this is something that I'm seeing a lot of online as well. So the Stars are, believe it or not, guys, as good as they've been all season. The Stars are on a 5-game winning streak currently. So, the hype is up there. Now, the problem is who they've beaten. They had the one good game against the Jets, right? And it took overtime the second night against the Sharks for the Stars to take care of it. They took care of it. That's what can be said about it. The first game took a shootout to beat the San Jose Sharks, who, again, one of the worst teams in the league. But then we saw them kind of handily beat both the Ducks, and we also saw them beat the Kings very handily. And again, I know it's at their home barn at Crypto.com Arena, and they've been very, very bad this season at home. But where are y'all at on the spectrum right now? Are y'all kind of like, are you super excited? You see this team starting to get it together, and that addition of Tanev is really starting to make that decor look better? Or are you just still kind of on the, what's the word I'm thinking of? The side you're just still not sure that this team is playing their best hockey yet? Where are y'all at on the spectrum with all this?
I mean, I think there's definitely another level that they could go to if they're all clicking. But I mean, the team doesn't need to have everyone clicking to be on top tier hockey level. And honestly, I feel like the first Sharks game, the Stars offense was just snake bitten. I don't think the Stars played that bad. I think they got snake bitten and got beat by 2 bad plays that they made in the defensive zone. The fifth game was weird because we had Tanev slot in randomly, and then the defense just sucked, and we couldn't find any offense until we all of a sudden could, and it clicked, and we found a bunch. And then after that, it felt like with those 10 minutes left in the third period of that second Sharks game, that's where they figured it out, and they carried that into the Anaheim and the Kings game. And that's what encourages me more. Like, yeah, it was kind of rocky way to get those wins, but that's what you wanted from this week. You wanted to beat the Jets and then to carry that momentum and beat these poor teams and sweep all the points. You did exactly that. It was a little bit rocky, but you still got all the points, and these last 2 games, you're looking exactly the way you want to do in the first place anyway. So overall, 100% happy, just a little bit of a roundabout way to get there.
Oddly enough, this Sharks team has been the Stars' kind of kryptonite for 2 years now, because last season we lost to them. Yeah, I mean, we lost the season series to them last year. It's really strange. They tried to lose both of those games against the Sharks this year as well, and we
still got one more.
Really, both of them were comeback wins. They were both just out of nowhere too. I mean, the first one you didn't think it was happening, and then even in the shootout, I didn't think it was going to happen. And then Jamie Benn, of course, the one to save us there, which is crazy. And then in the second one, no one's got anything going except for a single line that just decides in the last 5 minutes of the game that they didn't want to lose 6-3 and scored 3 to tie it. So the real game that's good is the Ducks game, because you saw a whole, like, every line scored except for the line that stole the second Sharks game, which is a really good response game. Like, that was the turnaround, because that is a response game after a win, which is not something that you normally see.
If you're a contending team, though, that's exactly what you want. And the other thing is, I would not have been mad at all if they had gone into that Kings game and lost. Like, I halfway expected it, to be honest with you, because it's on the West Coast. It's hard. It's the second game of a back-to-back. I would have totally understood if they lost that game. But the thing is they looked, I was there. They looked excellent in that game, and they were frustrating the crap out of Kings fans. It was ridiculous what they were doing to Kings fans. And part of it was the Kings were turning pucks over and everything like that, and they were not making good decisions with the puck. But you also have to give the Stars credit in the fact that, shoot, who cares? You're tired.
Working if they're turning over
pucks. Yeah, and you take what you're given and you make the most of it, and that's what they did.
And I think the bigger thing on those 2 games is the response to the win. Like you said, James, like, that defense was obviously unacceptable. Everybody knows that. You still found a way to win the game. You still have to respond to it, though. And that's what a good team like the Stars is going to do. And they absolutely responded. They had 2 outstanding shutdown, boring defensive games. The other team had nothing exciting going on. That's exactly what you wanted to see after a crap show like we saw on Tuesday.
Yeah, and normally that Sharks game is the one that will get a lot of teams, because you're like, oh, we got out of it, it's fine. But they did respond to it. I mean, it was very obvious they were playing very back during that Ducks game. They were making sure they were back. They were making sure they weren't giving up those stupid 2-on-1 chances like they were the entire game against the Sharks. It was just, it really was a response game for what it's worth.
Yeah, they didn't laugh it off. You're like, oh, it's just the Sharks. We got out of there. We're fine. They truly responded to it.
Zachary Mitchell and the chat box over here. The Stars shut out the Kings down. My goodness. Stars shut Kings down in all situations. I think that's the first time I've seen them do that all season. And that's a good point. You know, we've seen a lot of momentum swings for the other team, whoever it is, when it comes to, you know, the Stars being able to hold leads. And, you know, they've been known as a comeback team this year. The Stars are. They're not afraid to be down in a game 1-0 or 2-1 or 2-0 or whatever. But they have had some hard times kind of clamping down games and, you know, shutting it down. And that's a very good point, I thought, that Zachary said. In the third period, they got a big time opportunity with the power play to go up 2 goals, and they did. They took advantage of that opportunity, and that's something that we haven't seen a lot of the Stars lately. Again, it's the Kings. It's not one of the better teams in the league.
Well, the Kings are a good team. They're in the playoffs, and they are fighting for their playoff lives, too. I mean, let's not undersell the Kings. They're just not good at home. They're just not good at home. Yeah,
they suck at home.
Yep. What's the record, James? Do you have the record up? by chance?
Poor.
I don't have it, but at one
50% worse.
Yeah, wow. It is that they had a losing record for a large majority of the season, and it might still be a losing record at home right now. But that's the same to attest that they are crazy on the road, which is just stupid.
Yeah, I heard one analyst say it's a good thing that they're not going to get the first or second spot in their division because they don't want to have the Game 7 at home.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. That's absolutely funny. Okay. I want to get into the D pairings a little bit because with the addition of Tanev, we speculated especially about where he would be slotted into the lineup. We were all hoping he would be slotted next to Miro Heiskanen. That has not seemed to be the thing that has worked. So we have seen for a lot of the 2 games that we just finished, we saw Heiskanen and Harley staying together, which, I mean, that's fine. They've been good since they've been paired together. It just sucks because that's our top 2 defensemen. And then we've seen Esa Lindell and Chris Tanev. So Chris Tanev kind of taking Yanni Hakanpää's spot in that second pairing. And then that third pairing is the one that a lot of people seem to still be complaining about. And honestly, guys, I haven't seen a lot of it to make me think that it's really bad. But that pairing of Suter and Hakanpää seems to be getting a lot of not good stuff from Stars fans. Let's just say that. A lot of vitriol. The Stars fans don't really like it.
I think the first 2 games with that pairing looked really, really rough. And it's probably in large part to Hakanpää plays mostly with just Lindell and has done that pretty much the entire time he's been with the Stars. I mean, this is the first time he's having a new D partner in a really long time. And this is going to be someone who he's probably going to stay with through the end of the regular season and into the playoffs as well. And I thought in the Kings game, they looked much better. And that's where I'm kind of at with it right now. I think they sucked in the first 2 games. Hakanpää especially looked very, very poor, but I think they're starting to adjust.
Yeah, I think I think people feel that way more so because Hakanpää had 2 of his worst games of the season as soon as he was moved from the pairing with Lindell. But I think when you look at that as a bottom pair, it's much better than our bottom pair was. And I think it's going to get better. And we saw Suter go to a different level when we were in the playoffs last season. I feel like he can still do that. We've seen him do that when Heiskanen got hurt. He found a little bit extra in the gas tank. Hopefully he can do that again once we get to playoffs. And I think it's gonna be okay. And if it turns out it's not, we still have a little bit of an ace up the sleeve over there in Europe.
Yep.
What is y'all's thoughts on the argument of having Nils Lundkvist in there instead of Yanni Hakanpää? Because what's surprising, and I'll be totally honest, it's that we're not calling for Suter's head. We're calling for Yanni Hakanpää's head, which I don't understand because of the fact that Suter can play on the power play. He can play on the penalty kill. He just doesn't because we have guys that are better qualified for those spots now. I feel like Yanni Hakanpää is a penalty kill shutdown man. He is one of the best in the NHL when it comes to that. Him and Lindell together. Now, I don't know if that's mostly Lindell and he doesn't deserve any credit for it, but I don't think that's fair in saying that. So what are y'all's thoughts in the whole Lundkvist should be in the top 6 instead of Yanni Hakanpää?
Lundkvist isn't going to be in for that exact reason because Hakanpää is so good on the penalty kill, and he did suck those first 2 games. Even his penalty kill was bad, but when he's good on the penalty kill, he's good. I mean, that's that. Sorry, Ryan's distracting me here. I'm trying to find my thoughts.
Sorry. I'm looking for my nerd clusters. I put them around here somewhere. I want them.
His snacks.
Really? Okay.
My snacky snacks.
Whatever. And Lundkvist can't bring any kind of special teams skills.
Yeah.
He's tried. We've tried to get him on the power play. He can't do it. And even with Hakanpää's 2 bad games, Nils played one of those games and looked worse than him. So
yeah. I think the people who argue Lundkvist should be in over Hakanpää are not watching how bad Lundkvist is in the defensive zone normally. I mean, he does He does some really dumb decisions, and sometimes in the offensive zone too, when he has the puck at the point, 5-on-5, he panics a little bit, and sometimes he'll shoot it right in someone's shin pads, and it goes for a breakaway the other way. And
done that several times.
Yes, he does it. It's the Lundqvist special, though. He does it so much. It's ridiculous.
And I was a Nils apologist earlier this season, and I'm already off the train. So I just think it's not his year yet. I still think it's worth us trying to figure him out. I mean, we did pay a first-round draft pick for him. I think he has all the skills to be a top defenseman.
He's still young, and some people are like, he's not gonna be like Thomas Harley. He's not gonna be like Miro Heiskanen. Heck, he's not even gonna be like Esa Lindell. That maybe this, and we've seen some of these guys, some of these top draft picks in the first round, like Quentin Byfield, for example, in LA. It just took him a couple of years to kind of get it going. Same thing with Alex Lafreniere in New York. They've finally started to figure it out. So maybe it's just going to take Nils Lundqvist a couple of years.
And he's just in a weird spot too. I mean, with how he's playing, it seems like he'd be the perfect fit to go play in the AHL for a year, be the number one defenseman there, and play a ton of minutes. He can't do that. I mean, he can't move down. He'd have to go on waivers. It's not going to happen. So I think it's just going to, like you said, Ryan, take a little bit longer for him in the NHL. And if he's got to be sheltered a little bit at the end of the season in the playoffs, so be it. He'll be there if we need him. And hopefully he can, if he does get that opportunity, he can take advantage of it.
Okay, good. Any more thoughts on the two games? I think that we've pretty much hit the nail on the head there. No? Okay. Y'all want to do biggest winner and biggest losers from those games?
Yeah.
Let's just do the LA game.
Yeah.
Let's just do the LA game.
Wait, me jump to the Duck game.
Yeah, you already did the Ducks game. So biggest winner, biggest loser from the Ducks games, y'all. From the Kings games. Goodness.
Game. My biggest winner from the Kings game is Wedgwood. I thought he played really well. It was just those timely saves that we really needed in the 1-goal game that really helped us through on the second night of back-to-back. And the third period is a different story. I felt like the Stars just kind of dominated the Kings in that third period. But when they needed Wedgwood to show up early, he did.
Radek Fox is my biggest winner. That's why we drafted him first round. That goal-scoring prowess, baby.
That shot was crazy, right, dude. That was a crazy shot. It was a great shot. That's 3 goals in 4 games.
3 goals in 4 games. He's on a heater. That's what I'm saying.
Almost doubled his goals in last 4.
You know, I knew that because I heard that the other night, but at the time I didn't even know that. Again,
we're paying almost $1 million per goal.
I know. Oh my goodness. Even when he's doing good, you have to make some sort of comment.
I'm sorry. I'm trying, guys. I'm trying.
He's been very good lately. And doesn't he have 6 goals on the season? Right?
7 now.
7? Wow. He might actually make double digits this year.
He might make it there.
All right. And then for me, I think I'm just going to give it, I'm going to be kind of cop-out-ish, but the overall team defense in the Kings game was excellent. I was there. It was fun to watch, and it was fun to watch the reaction of the Kings fans there. Just they were frustrated. Oh, by the way, some of them did not know that Scott Wedgwood was the backup goaltender. So when I let it be known to him that he's the backup goalie, and they were like, "What?" And then I even mentioned that he makes $1 million. Just that's it against the cap, and that frustrated them even more. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to let them know that the backup goalie was the one that was shutting the door down against the LA Kings. So, who you got as your biggest loser, guys, for the Kings game?
Wyatt Johnston, a two game goalless drought. What a chump, player. Washed up, and takes a penalty.
A bust, absolute
awful.
Bust.
Terrible. No points. Awful. Can't believe it.
Mine is on the whistle sensitivity for the officials. They need to turn that sensitivity down a little bit.
Yeah, no joke.
9 penalties.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't just
power
that.
plays. I don't know how many penalties actually. I'd have to count.
Well, it wasn't even just that though, Chris. The thing that frustrated
the 2 minute.
Yeah, they were like, yeah, that was funny. But the other thing that I was frustrated about was we should have been up 4-1, but they blew the stinking whistle too early. He didn't have the puck. Speaking of whistle sensitivity, and it should have been 4-1 Stars, and then I would have felt even more better about the Stars' performance in the game, because that should have put the game away, and it shouldn't have even been close, or they shouldn't have even been able to pull their goalie to give them a shot to win the game. So that's kind of where I was on all that stuff too, though. Anything else?
You didn't give your biggest loser. I gave mine.
Oh,
you stole mine.
Mine's Logan Stankoven. Two-game goalless skid. My goodness, the guy's a bust.
Those guys stink.
Like, seriously, 8 points in 8 games, ridiculous. He needs.
We can at least send them down, and they get some good practice in the AHL playoffs.
Well, we send him down like every other day, so he obviously goes down there.
He's probably technically in Cedar Park right now.
But he's supposed to be, I guess. But anyways, in all reality, I'm excited about the Stars. I think that they're starting to kind of ramp it up and get into playoff formation. And that addition of Cristiano, I think we're finally starting to see it pay off. I mean, we've only given up 3 goals in 2 games. And again, who cares if it's against the quote unquote bad teams? If you're talking about the Kings at home, even they took care of business, and it was 3 goals in 2 games.
We're just gonna forget that 6-goal game.
Yes.
Yes. We got a big homestand coming up though. That'll be nice for proving. You got the Panthers. You got the Devils, who are kind of fighting for a spot, but not really. And then you got the Kings. On the second night of the back-to-back, they try to get their revenge, and they're on the road this time. So they should be like 1,000 times harder to beat.
Yeah, they're going to be great. I mean, it's just going to be shocking. And they still got a couple cupcakes at the end there, too. So, yeah. I mean, we talked about how this ending schedule was much easier for the Stars, and boy, it really is. And the Stars are taking advantage right now. I mean, getting all those points on the West Coast. Obviously, you look at those games, you're like, oh, we should win all of those. But to actually go out and do it, that's kind of a different story, too. So they're really executing on the week schedule that we have. Unfortunately, the Jets are executing on their games in hand as well. So they're keeping pace.
Sorry, I'm going through and I'm trying to count how many games we actually have against playoff teams remaining. 1, 2,
not a lot.
3.
Seems like a pre-show thing to do.
5, 6. There's 6 games remaining against teams above the playoff line right now. So we just got to go out there and take advantage.
That includes games against the Jets and the Avs.
Yes,
those are the big ones.
So those are the big ones.
Those are the big
Circle those.
Although I'm going to be circling. I'm circling this one tomorrow night against the Panthers, because that's going to be huge. To again, another measuring stick, and we kind of been saying that against Colorado, and we have not fared well against Colorado. But if the way that I'm feeling right now is correct, and that they're finally starting to get into playoff form, and that addition of Tanev is really going to help, and it has helped the defense, then I think this game against the Florida Panthers is going to be really interesting.
And when you're playing these teams this close to playoff time, you need to be getting as close to that intensity as you can get as well. So I would say you're right, Ryan. That Panthers game, the Canucks games, and then the 2 against our division, those are kind of the 4 that you're like, okay, let's figure out how to play playoff hockey right now and see if we can do it now.
And I think it would be good for both teams, because the only time we would see Florida in the playoffs is if we made the Stanley Cup final, and so did they. But I think it would be good for both teams to kind of get some practice making a game feel like a playoff game.
Hopefully the other team doesn't play like that, and we can just pound them into the ground and win the division. That's what I am hoping for. I don't want the practice. I want to beat them.
And beat them handily. Okay, so 2-week homestand for the Dallas Stars. And guys, these games are spread out. This is not like February at all. So we've had two days off, and then they play tomorrow. Day off, they have a game. Day off, they have a game. And then they have 3 days off. I don't think I've ever seen that.
But then after that, they got the sucker punch of the Coyotes. That's a tough game.
Oh goodness. Yeah, the Coyotes who lost 14 in a row at some point in the season.
But yeah, real easy schedule like we talked about earlier, but you got to take advantage of it too. So,
and we're finally getting to play a team on the second night of a back-to-back. For the first time this season, the Kings will be the first team we play on the second night of a back-to-back.
Are you serious?
This scheduling
yes.
is sus.
We have not played.
There's no way. There's no way.
I don't believe
I'm not positive, but
I don't believe you either. There's no way. All the way until March, that's the first time it has happened. We gotta look into that more.
I'll look further, but we'll see. I feel like it hasn't really happened as much as we have it happen to us.
Someone fact check that.
All right, moving on into the next thing. I thought it would just be fun for me to get a chance to talk about my California road trip. That was a lot of fun. It was insane what I did, but it was well worth it. So basically what I did is on Thursday, I still had school, so I had to go through the school day like normal. And I met my friend in Odessa at like 5 o'clock Central Time. And it was me, him, and his wife. And we drove through the night going all the way to California. And we did it. We actually did it. So we showed up in California at like 7 a.m. Friday morning. And dude, I was so exhausted, tired. It was weird. But got the chance to go to both the games. Honda Center is actually really nice. It's more homey. And Crypto.com arena was actually, this is maybe not a great word to use, but it was more corporate feeling, if that makes any sense. It was like it was cool in that aspect. If you had to ask me like which one I liked more, I actually think I liked Honda Center more than I liked Crypto.com arena. But anyways, I don't know how many of you saw on X. I could not believe that this happened to me, but they had like this little snack words camera or whatever it's called. And basically what they do is they film people before the game eating their food and eating their concessions. And then they normally do this to the opposite team. And then they reverse it. And when they reverse the camera of the other team's fans like eating their food, it's absolutely disgusting because it looks like, people are eating their nachos or whatever, and they're pulling it out of their mouth and putting it back in the box or whatever. It's disgusting. And that happened to me with my pizza.
And Ryan looked like a fool.
I looked like a fool, but it was funny.
You were a fool.
It was actually really, really funny. I enjoyed it very much. And the other thing about Honda Center as well is, as bad as the Ducks have been, and I'm not joking when I say this, there were just as many Stars fans there at Honda Center as there were Ducks fans. Like, I'm not exaggerating when I say that. It was like 50-50. It was a little bit of a different story at the Kings game. I felt very very humbled by that experience. There's not quite as many Stars fans at that game, but still it was really cool. I've never even been on the Jumbotron at the American Airlines Center. Of course, the first time I go to a game somewhere else to watch a Stars game, I get thrown on the Jumbotron, and that's what it is. So I thought it was funny. I enjoyed my trip. Y'all have any questions?
How were the Hondas?
The Hondas were terrible. Oh. And I think there was like, there were actually a lot more Teslas than I thought there was gonna be. This because California and everything like that. But James has got it up. We'll go ahead and pull it up for you so you can see it. James, if you go ahead and play it.
Go watch on YouTube.
It's also on the Discord.
Yep. So
look at that. Yucky.
It's on the Discord though. Disgusting. So
he spat the pizza out of his mouth. Haha.
Yep. And also thanks to Rye Guy as well for his changing of the intro. that he did. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, again, go look at the Discord. Go look at the pics. Go look at the pics and vids channel on our sarcastic remarks server, and you'll see what I'm talking about there.
Much funnies.
We got the funnies, dude. I tell you what.
James likes to post cat videos when the Stars are losing really bad as well. So and that what the one time we were what game was it? Was it not the Flyers game? It was
the Avalanche
game. It was the Avalanche game where you were doing that, and it was actually making my night a little bit better when I saw those. So, anyways, go and join that Discord so you can see all that stuff. Okay. Anyways, here's the real thing I wanted to get into tonight, guys, in the fact of that we are now past the trade deadline. Trade deadline was on Friday. I halfway expected the Stars to make something, make another move, but nonetheless they didn't. And they made a minor trade where Riley Damiani got traded out and we brought in Pettersson. But then that was a minor league deal, but nothing. Yeah, not that Pettersson. Yeah, if that was the case, I would be elated. That Pettersson for Riley Damiani, dude, what a steal. Talk about getting fleeced. But what did y'all think of the Stars' deadline moves or lack of deadline moves? What are your thoughts?
Lack of deadline moves is insulting. We got Chris Tanev, probably number 1, number 2 most sought after defenseman, and the guy the Stars definitely wanted more. I mean, if we had to pick between Tanev and Hanifin, we were picking Tanev. So it's a masterclass by Jim Nill. You gave up nothing that the Stars care about. Didn't even give up a first round draft pick. A+ by the Stars GM again. If the Stars go to the Stanley Cup, he probably will win GM of the year again. I mean, that's crazy work by him.
A big part of what he said on, I think, trade deadline day, that he thought we had a lot of pieces in our system that was better than anything that he could trade for already. And that's and when I go and I look out at who was traded on that Friday, he's kind of just right. Yep. I mean, there's no point in giving away more picks to get players that we have sort of down on our AHL team right now.
Yep, the best you would have gotten is a guy who's maybe a number 6 defenseman, and we think Bixel, whatever his name is likely better than that anyway. So,
and even Lundqvist can fill a 6th defenseman position.
Yeah. So it was a lot more frugal on a defenseman than I think we thought it was going to be. And Tanev was also a lot cheaper than we thought he was going to be too. Everyone was saying a top prospect and a number 1, and that's not at all what the cost was.
And what I wanted to get in with all of this is that the whole Hanley situation. I really think that Jim Nill was probably looking to add somebody else, and this is not insider information or anything like this. This is just pure speculation. All right, so don't think I have like inside sources when it comes to this. But what I do understand, what I do know, just from social media and the way that some of the guys were talking, is that it really affected the locker room when Joel Hanley left. I mean, the guy had been around for 6 years, and yeah, he was a 7th defenseman, but I mean, the time that he spent with his organization was a very long time, and he was very, very good at his job and very effective at what he was asked to do as the 7th defenseman. It probably one of the best guys I think I've ever seen be able to have that role on a team. Just get thrown in every so often when somebody else is sick or not feeling good or there's a random injury or whatever. But I really kind of believe this in the fact that Jim Nill saw how it affected the team and the chemistry that he had. And I think that maybe that's why he didn't go out and make another major move to the NHL roster, especially. I mean, again, pure speculation and, grasping at straws here, but I think there's something there. Thoughts?
Part of the thing that you got to remember with Hanley is like we think of him as kind of an AHL player, but he was never in the AHL. I mean, he was on the Stars roster constantly. This wasn't someone who we called up and sent down constantly. He's always with the Stars. He took every warm up pretty much the entire time he was here. Even if he wasn't in the game, he was in the locker room taking warm-ups with the team. So this really is someone who's been with the team for a very long time. And whereas he hasn't had a big role playing on the team itself, he's had a big part of the locker room. And that was fairly obvious when he got claimed off of waivers.
I don't think that stopped any potential trades from Jim Nill. He was already getting moved down. He was already not going to be on the team. We knew that was going to happen. I think if there was an option to make the team better, Jim Nill would have done it. And I just think there honestly wasn't a better option than Pixel, which we already have. So, yeah, I get what you're saying, Ryan. He definitely was a big part of this team's dressing room, but it wasn't. I mean, you could be as good as you want at being a seventh defenseman. At the end of the day, you're a seventh defenseman. And when you add a defenseman and you don't lose a defenseman in a trade, we're not going to carry 8. So he was gone one way or another.
It just really sucks. I think we've already kind of talked about Hanley leaving the team and everything like that, but it just really sucks the way that it ended like that. I mean, the Stars are trying to go for it, and he's the casualty. So unfortunately, that's what had to happen. But if the last 2 games are any, consolidation for Stars fans, if they're really that upset about losing Joe Hanley, then you should feel pretty good about our chances moving forward. But
yeah, I'll trade Tana for Hanley any day of the week.
So I know there were some people who were over here in the chat kind of saying they were Ricky over here. I wanted the Stars to add one more defenseman. And then he said, but then I realized that Pete probably wouldn't play another guy over Hakanpää or Suter. And that's probably fairly accurate. Zach saying, I feel like adding one more would have been questionable. You add one more, you have to part ways with another player. That's tough on the team. Hanley was tough for them and the fans. Yeah. And I don't think it was as bad as if it had been someone else like Essa. Like if he had been traded, that would have, I'm sorry, that would have killed me if Esa Lindell had been traded. But I think that Pete DeBoer, I think Jim Nill did the right thing here, and he got his guy. He thinks that the team's good enough. You know what? We'll see what they can do. That's kind of where I'm at with the Stars on the deadline.
If there's a solid number 5 that was available that the Stars could have gotten and circumvented the cap some way, we would have done it. But there wasn't one. I mean, you look at who was traded, there wasn't a solid number 5 that we could say is 100% better than Hakanpää and Suter, and that would fit under our cap space. That player didn't exist.
All right, moving off the Stars a little bit, you guys. I do want to mention, I'm not going to go through and mention every single trade, but there are two aspects of the trade deadline that I did want to kind of discuss. And I want to discuss the Central Division, and then I want to discuss the Vegas Golden Knights, because the Vegas Golden Knights have been a huge, Chris is already smirking. They've been a huge talking point for the last 4 days, and we'll get into that here in a second. But the Colorado Avalanche were very busy at the trade deadline and made some surprising trades. And one of the biggest trades of the trade deadline, and the fact that Casey Middlestat from the Buffalo Sabres, who is a very good player and has definitely stepped up the last couple of years for that team, he gets traded to the Avalanche in return for Bowen Byram, which I thought was a little shocking and that's a perfect word, because it makes sense, especially for the Avalanche, because the Avalanche, one of their strong suits is their defense. Their decor is one of the best in the NHL, if not the best in the NHL. And they sacrificed a little bit of that in order to get their second line center, because Ryan Johansson didn't work out at all in that spot after they got him in the offseason. Casey Middlestat, that's basically his roster spot to take. And they made some other moves as well. They went out and got one of the other big names when it comes to defensemen from this trade deadline. They got Sean Walker from the Philadelphia Flyers. They also went out and got Brandon Duhaime from the Wild. I hated that guy. He was a good player for the Wild, a good fourth line guy. And then they even made a trade with the Predators for Jakob Trenin and another guy who I don't really know all that well. But they've kind of really changed the aspect of their team a little bit here. And there's rumors that Landeskog is going to come back possibly at some point during the playoffs. I don't think the first round is in the works for him, but I mean, and this is also a team, guys, that yes, they've been very top heavy, but they've beaten the Stars 3 times this season. So if we don't get first in the division and we have to face Colorado in the first round, that's a very scary thing to face as a Stars fan.
I think that is kind of hogwash with how the schedule is buffed out with us against the Avalanche. We're gonna, by the end of the season, we will have played the Avalanche 3 times on our second night of a back-to-back without the Avalanche of playing the day before. So take that as you will. I feel like the regular season matchup has been kind of whatever. That's just how it busts out. But they did add a bunch and they paid a decent amount for it. I think it's the right move for the Avalanche to go and do that because they did lose a lot after they won the cup. A lot of people went different places and got some more money. That's how it worked out. And they're hoping that with this little amount of depth, they can have McKinnon carry them most of the time and get a couple more goals from their depth. And if they can do that, they will be able to at least make some sort of playoff run.
Yeah, they're trying to build enough so that the pack on McKinnon's back is not as heavy. And those depth guys are guys that I really like. I agree with everything you said, Ryan. Those depth guys are really good players. The Middlestat one is super interesting. Not really sure why Buffalo would make that trade because I feel like
they've already exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking because it makes a lot of sense for Colorado, but you've already got Rasmus Dahlin and you've got Owen Power, who are both first overall picks, and you're going to take Bowen Byram on top of that? I don't know. Yeah, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
And Middlestat seems like a guy you want on a Buffalo team that's saying we're almost here. We're about to be there. That's kind of the guy you want locking down the core of your center iceman, I feel like. That's a shocking deal to me from the Sabres. A good one from the Avs. Fully agree. Yeah. But shocking.
And Middlestat is going to be an RFA at the end of his contract as well.
Yeah. So, don't know. That's interesting. But maybe there's some other issues with Middlestat too that we don't. That's what I always kind of go to whenever you do a 1-for-1 deal like that. Is it maybe just wasn't a fit. So, but yeah, well, really weird.
You just don't see very many quote unquote hockey trades nowadays. Normally, what you see is a veteran
assets per player.
Exactly. You get draft picks and prospects in return for a player who's already an NHL level player. NHL caliber player. And then the only other hockey trade I can think of that has happened as of late was when Ryan Johansson got traded for Seth Jones all those years ago. And that was a while ago. So yeah, I just thought, and that came out of nowhere too. I don't think one time I ever heard Casey Middlestat's name or Bowen Byram's name when it came to the trade deadline. So that was really under wraps. And they basically replaced Bowen Byram with Sean Walker, which is not as good. But hey, you gave up Bowen Byram to go and get a second line center who you've desperately needed, and you've been relying upon your first line to basically do all of the stuff for you offensively. So the Avalanche team looks scary.
And Sean Walker,
when you look at some of the other. No, he's a solid player. I just think he gets overhyped a little bit just because he was one of the quote unquote bigger names in this trade deadline, and he had a good season this year. He's had a good season this year, and if he keeps going, then great. He is a fantastic 100% defenseman. But we'll see how that goes. But moving on to 2 other teams, the Jets were very busy as well. They went out and got Tyler Toffoli at 50% retained. So that's a guy who's a 30-goal scorer, and that's exactly what the Jets need. They need some goal scoring. And then they went out and got some depth, and they got Colin Miller. So Colin Miller is back with Rick Bowness. And I know that people make jokes about the fact that Kyle Dubas loves his guys, but let's be honest, Rick Bowness loves his guys as well. So, so the Jets making some moves as well to kind of bolster their lineup. And then
I'm kind of worried about the Toffoli thing. Sorry, I want to interject real quick because
no, it's okay.
That system that Bones is running is even more locked down than it was in Dallas. I mean, in Dallas, I felt like he was crazy. It was like nobody could do anything, and then the Jets, it's even more so. So I feel like it's going to be hard to get a guy like Toffoli to, one, buy into the system, and two, be able to play it before the playoffs start. That'll be interesting.
Yeah,
we'll see.
That is a really weird pickup for a bonus team, just because I mean, it feels like that 30-goal season's would change into a 15 on the Jets.
Yeah. On paper, it makes sense. You need goals, pick up Toffoli. Great. But for the way Bones plays hockey, which is different than everybody else, it just doesn't seem like it would work.
And then also the Predators go out and they kind of bolster their lineup a little bit with some guys who might be able to put the puck in the back of the net. And Jason Zucker from the Coyotes and Anthony Beauvillier. And all they gave up was a 5th round to the Blackhawks and a 6th round to the Coyotes. So maybe some under the radar guys for the Predators who would be able to score some goals. And they didn't really give up much to get those guys either.
When you're on a win streak and you're kind of sniffing at the bubble, why not get a little bit of playoff revenue for your owner there in Nashville? Is more what that looks like.
I think they did a pretty good job for where they're at as a team right now.
Exactly.
They didn't give up hardly anything, and they're likely to still make the playoffs pretty easily.
Yeah, and told their players, hey, go do it.
And I really think we're starting to see a separation in the teams, especially in the West, with the 8 teams that are going to get, and then the 8 teams that will not be. So that's what I think. I think we're going to see that separation get even further apart as we get closer to the end of the season, and Nashville will be in the playoffs. Mark my words.
And it's not just what you think, Ryan. There's a 6-point gap between Vegas, which is the second wild card spot, and the next team, which is the Blues. And then it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different in the East, but the Central for sure. There's definitely a sizable gap that is growing between playoff teams and non-playoff teams.
Or the Islanders sniffing in the East. Yeah,
definitely.
But after the Islanders, it drops.
There's a couple of teams that could get in there, but it's I don't want to say it's decided. It's never decided until the last game. It seems like there's always a situation where, like, I keep pointing this out because it makes me mad. The Stars had a chance to go to the playoffs. All they had to do was beat Minnesota. I forget what year it was, and they didn't. So it always can go down to the last game of the season, but we'll see. I think they're solidified, but the Stars will either see Colorado, Nashville, or Vegas in the first round. So we'll see. We'll see where that leads. I do want to do one more thing, and then we'll kind of wrap it up here tonight with our Who Cares segment for the evening, you guys. So the one thing I want to get your thoughts on is the whole Vegas situation. So Vegas, I don't know if you could say that this is a smart thing that they're doing. It's a smart business decision, but they're using LTIR to the fullest extent for cap circumvention, I guess you could say. Mark Stone goes on LTIR because he has a lacerated spleen, apparently. And before last year was his back, and he had a really bad back. And with the money that they opened up, they were able to go out and not just get the biggest defenseman on the market in Noah Hannafin, but they also went out and got a guy who was probably not even in trade talks at all, in Thomas Hertl from the San Jose Sharks. And that was a bomb that went off in the trade deadline. Like, I don't think anybody saw that coming. So Thomas Hertl had to waive his no movement clause in order to go to Vegas. He's got 6 years left on his deal, you guys. And I think his cap hit is being retained, like 17% of his salary is being retained for the next 6 years by the San Jose Sharks. So some people are extremely frustrated about the fact that the Vegas Golden Knights are going out and they're doing these things and they're saying, oh, well, and they're obviously it's just conspiracies. They're saying, oh, well, Mark Stone is not actually hurt and he's going to be available for the playoffs for the first round. And not only are they going to get, all their players back, but they're going to be able to make the playoffs with all of these guys. And then Mark Stone will be, game one of the playoffs ready to go, just like Kucherov did for the Lightning in 2021, I think is what it was. So, but the thing is they didn't break any rules. Technically, they did not break any rules, and they just used the rules that are there to their, to their benefit. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely pushing the rules when you're doing that as the Knights. And what's kind of even more crazy about it is they're just doing the exact same thing they did last year. Like the exact same thing. I mean, I bet Stone actually did get hurt. But I bet they're also going to hold him out longer than he actually needs to. Same thing that they did last year. And yeah, I agree with what you said at the end there, Ryan. You can't be mad at them. They're following the rules. They are playing the game by the rules. But when the rules are getting exploited like this, you have to change the rules. The rules need to be changed. So I don't know exactly what needs to be done about it. There's a couple things floating around, like if you're on LTIR from trade deadline till the end of the season, you can't play the first couple of games of the playoffs, maybe. So we'll see what comes of it. I think when it happens blatantly 2 years in a row, but it's been happening for the last 8. I think this summer is finally the time that something's going to happen about it, because it's getting blatant at this point. 2 years in a row, literally the exact same thing is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I feel like it's part of the problem with it is that you can't predict injuries and when injuries are going to happen. So it's weird when you have people go on LTIR right before the trade deadline.
It's just convenient.
Yeah, it's convenient, but also it feels like sometimes you're just rolling the dice now, and that's not what you really want when you're talking about who should be the best team going into the playoffs.
And just for hockey, you don't want to incentivize teams to keep their best players off the ice during some of the most exciting regular season hockey in the last month of the season. I mean, that's just not good for hockey. And it's definitely an abuse of the way that the cap rules work too. So something needs to be addressed about it. I don't think you can be mad at the Vegas Golden Knights. They're following the rules. They're breaking the spirit of the rule, sure. Don't rely on spirit of the rule, especially when you're talking about money. I mean, you got to nail that stuff down. And this summer, there's going to be some kind of response to what has happened, I believe.
My only thing about it is I know these people are speculating, that Stone is not actually hurt and everything, but why would you hold out your best player and arguably one of the best two-way forwards in the NHL when you're a second wild card team and you have the possibility of missing the playoffs? That's my thing. So I that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me in the whole conspiracy thing when it comes to some people saying that the Vegas Golden Knights need to be investigated or whatever. That doesn't make any sense to me.
I definitely think he's hurt, but he's going to be hurt for a lot longer than he needs to be, because he's not going to play until the playoffs start, or else they're going to have to cut some salary cap. So I think he could probably play in April, and he's not going to, because they're going to circumvent the cap.
Well, they can't. He can't come back until the playoffs because they don't have any cap space.
Exactly.
I think they literally have zero.
Physically, he could, is what I'm saying, but he's not going to because of the cap.
So, some thoughts over here in the chat. Mr. James is awesome. If Stone comes back, the NHL has to do something about this. He also says with Vegas, it always seems planned, like they're expecting someone to get hurt. And Ricky over here saying, I really want Vegas to miss the playoffs. It would be so funny. I think that would be hilarious. I agree with you. They go out and
best timeline.
yes, it would be very funny. I would love to see that. And then we don't have to play them in the first round of the playoffs either, assuming we get first place.
Yeah. So even if Stone doesn't come back for game 1, something still has to be done about it. I mean, we can't be it obviously has happened in the past with Kucherov, with Stone last year. Something has to happen with it because the rule is being abused right now. And it's foolish for hockey to do that. Taking your best players out of big games during the regular season, not good for hockey. And having people magically return in game 1 of the playoffs, it makes the sport look stupid.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. So thoughts. There's already too much stuff that we've already gone an hour. So let's just move on, and we'll talk more about it if we need to another time. Who cares? Who cares segment? Our first one in a while. Whose idea was it?
It was mine.
Okay, so what was your idea, James, that we have to do for our Who Cares segment?
So we are doing our top 3 favorite farm animals, that being animals that you would find on a farm. Chris,
pig.
You're gonna go first.
It's a pig. Oink oink.
That's your number 3rd?
Yes, sir.
All right, Ryan, your number 3rd.
No elaborate description as to why you picked number 3.
Tasty. Yummy.
I said oink oink. What more do you want?
Bacon. For my number 3, I'll give it to chicks, just because they're cute, little baby chickens. That's all I got. James, number 3.
My number 3 will be chickens, because chickens make eggs, and eggs are delicious and necessary in every breakfast that you eat. I'm just saying, if I eat breakfast, I'm gonna be eating eggs.
Eggs is schmacking. That's facts.
We're back to
you can
Chris.
have
no,
you can have breakfast without eggs. Yes,
you can't. You can do Chris, bacon, you're number 2nd.
You do pancakes. Chris, you're number 2.
I'm gonna go with ducks. I don't know. That just seems, that seems kind of out there, hey, these are my ducks. I keep ducks, I feel like that's a good conversation starter. Ducks.
Okay, my number 2. My number 2 is a horse. Horses are so cool. They're amazing animals. Chris, we can't take you anywhere. Anyways, horses are amazing animals, and they're also a lot of... Never mind. I'm not even going to say the next thing I was going to say.
He can't say anything now.
You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and say it anyways, and then Chris is going to take it completely the wrong way. Okay? Horses are really fun to ride. They're a lot of fun to ride. There you go. Yeah.
They run very fast.
You know what? I'm just going to mute him.
There's horse races. You can gamble on horse races. That's cool.
James, you're number 2.
Next.
Okay. My number 2 is cows, because cows, they make milk, and they make meat, and they make everything that is tasty in the world. I mean, I don't know what I would eat if it weren't for cows. If cows didn't exist, I'd be a very sad person. There'd be no cheese, no hamburgers. What would I eat? Nothing.
Chicken nuggets.
Anyway, Chris, your number 1st.
All right, my number 1st. I thought long and hard during this whole segment on whether or not I should say this. So I'm gonna go a little bit further than a chicken. We're gonna go with a male chicken. The little alarm clock in the morning. We're gonna say The Rooster.
The Rooster. Not the Rooster, but the Rooster.
That was a. What do you call that, James? When you make someone think that you're about to say something, but then you say it's something else.
An innuendo? Is that what you were going for?
I don't think so, but sure.
Close enough.
I don't think. How did we get to? Oh my goodness! How did we get to this? Okay. Anyway,
I hate you, Chris. You ruined my segment.
I know, right?
I think it's Ryan's
totally
fault.
ruined it. Chris is the biggest loser tonight for the podcast episode. He's the biggest loser.
My Who Cares segment.
Yay.
My number one is the real number one. And you could argue that this animal is not a farm animal, but people say it's a farm animal, so I'm going to go with it. My number one animal is a dog. The farm animal is a dog as a farm animal. It is. That's all I got. James?
I've got jokes, but I can't make them.
No, you can't.
Anyway, my number first is goats, because goats also make milk and cheese, and also baby goats have to be like the cutest things ever. And they're called kids, and that's just adorable. And I don't know where I would be without knowing what a baby goat looks like. I mean, I'd be a lot less happy.
Probably be in a very similar place.
No, I'd be a lot less happy. Baby goats, they heal the soul.
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, Chris, you have to admit, James wins this segment, right?
No.
I did come up with the segment.
I think he wins. I think he wins.
I think you won, Ryan. I like your list.
No,
none of y'all put cows in there, and cows do everything for us.
Well, cows are also one of the reasons why there's climate change, James. I mean, they do fart so much that there's methane gas in the air, and they're one of the biggest reasons why.
Yeah,
so
that's why. Oh, Chris is he's tired. Good night, Chris. Good night, Sarcastic Remarks.
Thank you guys for listening. There was up to 83 people here tonight, guys. That's amazing. The fact that you guys are tuning into what we have to say, or that y'all even care. Hopefully you got some sort of entertainment out of this tonight, especially out of this random Who Cares segment. James wins it tonight. Go and check out sarcasticremarks.com. That's the website. sarcasticremarksshop.com is the merch store. It's the best way to support us. Leave a 5-star review anywhere you listen to your podcast. That's our best way to help us grow. We'd appreciate it if y'all would do so. Click like and subscribe here on YouTube. Follow us on social media, just basically about anywhere. Go and check out Discord. Discord has those videos that we were talking about.
They have the funnies.
They have the funny stuff. And James likes to post cat videos when the stars are doing really bad. So that can make you feel a little bit better. Along with James and Chris, who is off stage, my name is Ryan. We'll catch you guys on the flip side. We'll be back with you guys again tomorrow night after the Stars take on the Florida Panthers at the American Airlines Center. Thank you guys so much.